Tēnā koutou whānau. This video is recording on the 5th of June 2022. I feel it's important to warn you that some information contained in this video may be considered by some family members to be very contentious. Today we're looking at my grandmother, Mona Olive Kean, whose maiden name was LOWE. Mona's father was Thomas George Frederick Lowe, and her mother was Eva Olive Lowe, maiden name Coles, normally known as Nana Tweedy. Here we see Mona's birth certificate information. She was born on the 9th of May 1922, and the place of birth is difficult to read. It appears to say, residence of Mrs. Chapel, Norfolk Road, Englewood. I don't know who Mrs. Chapel was. We can see here her name, Mona Olive. And we can see that she was a female. Her father's details were given as Thomas George Frederick Lowe, a labourer, aged 33, from Upper Hutt. And we can see here her mother's details, Eva Olive Lowe, maiden name Coles, aged 21, from Nelson. And the date of their marriage was given as 23rd January 1919 in New Plymouth. We can see here in section 3A that when she was born, Mona already had an older sister. And in section 3B, it shows that she had an older brother who was already deceased. This brother, as we know, was the infant Eric Lowe, who was born and passed away in 1919, the year that Mona's parents were married. We can see here the informant's details. The informant is the person who provided this information, and it was Mona's father, Thomas Lowe, and there you can see his signature. And Thomas gave his residence as Norfolk Road, Englewood, the same road where Mona was born. This birth was registered on the 16th of June 1922, and we can see at the bottom there the registrar's signature. This photograph was taken at Te Hora School in 1933. And here we can see the name Mona Lowe, and just above it, the name of her sister Jean. Both children appear in the middle row of this photograph. Jean is the second girl from the left, and Mona is the second girl from the right. This is the only photograph I know of that appears with Mona and Jean as children. Mona had 6 children. The first was a son, Robert William Lowe, better known as Bobby. The circumstances of Bobby's birth are difficult to establish. I have spoken with my mother and also with Mona's youngest brother Sam and Sam's wife Susie, and they all confirmed that Mona was not married when Bobby was born. The identity of Bobby's father was unclear, and the only name they could come up with between them in separate conversations was the surname Archibald. That is completely unsubstantiated, and they admitted that they really didn't know for sure. As you can imagine, Mona, being unmarried in the 1940s with a young son, would have found life socially very difficult. Mona then had a second son, Eric Raymond Lowe, and once again the identity of Eric's father was difficult to establish. Conversations with my mother and with Sam and Susie again turned up very few leads. The name Gordon Lee was mentioned, but they admitted again they weren't sure. The one thing they were certain of, or at least they all agreed on, was that they believed that Eric's father was an American. Given that Eric was born in 1944, I consider this information to be highly possible. The Americans were at war with Japan in 1944, and there were large numbers of American servicemen in New Zealand at the time. So the possibility that Eric's father was actually an American serviceman is quite possible, though his name is really unknown. Mona then went on to marry Daniel Robert George Kean, otherwise known as Bob. Between them they had 4 more children: Maureen Joyce Kean, my mother Lorraine Dawn Kean, Nairi Evelyn Jean Kean, and Daniel John Kean, otherwise known as Danny. And this completed Mona's family. One interesting point to note is that when both Bobby and Eric were born, their births were registered by Mona, and they were registered under the surname Lowe. Their birth certificates had the father's section blank. Shortly after they were married, Bob Kean went to the registrar's office and re-registered them under the surname Kean. It appears he did not want anyone to know that the 2 oldest boys were not his biological sons. I have copies of both the originals and the second birth certificates for both of these men. Bob Kean and Mona Lowe were married in the district of Wellington. They were married on the 15th of August 1944 at the registrar's office in Wellington. Bob gave his name as Robert Daniel Kean. His name is in fact Daniel Robert George. And of course we see Mona's name, Mona Olive Lowe. Bob gave his age as 32 and Mona as 22. Bob gave his profession as a soldier. I've discussed this with my mother when she was alive, and it seems in fact he was a member of the Home Guard. Bob's status at the time was divorced. His divorce was completed on the 3rd of August 1944. This was less than 2 weeks before he married Mona. Mona was a spinster. She was unmarried. Bob gave his birthplace as Wellington and Mona as Stratford, which is pretty close. She was born in Englewood. Bob's usual residence was listed as Wellington, and his current residence was Trentham, which ties in with the fact that he was in the military. Mona's usual residence was Wellington, and her current residence was Wellington. Bob gave his father's name as Robert William Kean, a labourer. This information is in fact totally incorrect. My research discovered that his father's name was actually Daniel Kean from Glasgow in Scotland. When I spoke to Bob about this in his older years, it was clear to me that he in fact didn't even know who his father was, and he was quite surprised to learn that his father was from Scotland. Bob Kean's mother is listed as Laura Kean, maiden name Rose. This is not quite correct. Her name was actually Sarah Laura Kean, and her maiden name was in fact Rose. Mona's father is listed as Thomas George Frederick Lowe, a labourer. And Mona's mother was Evelyn Olive Lowe, maiden name Coles. Again we see the name Evelyn. Here we see Bob and Mona's family. The oldest child, Robert William or Bobby Kean. And then we have Eric Raymond Kean. We then have Maureen Joyce Kean. And my mother, Lorraine Dawn Kean. We also have Nairi Evelyn Jean Kean. And the youngest, Daniel John, or Danny Kean. Here we can see the wedding photo of my mother, Lorraine, to her first husband. And here we can see Mona at that wedding. Apparently it was a windy day because she was trying to hold her hat on, and the photographer did not capture her face in the photograph. For me, this is particularly difficult as I spent most of my childhood living every weekend with my grandparents, Mona and Bob, and at my age now, I really can't remember what she looked like. And there we can see Mona's husband, Bob Kean. I have 2 photographs from this wedding, and of them, this is the clearest one. Mona passed away, and her death was registered in Palmerston North. Here we see her name, Mona Olive Kean. She was married, and she lived at 11 Holme Street in Palmerston North. She was described as female, aged 54, and her birth date was given as the 9th of May 1922. Mona died on the 3rd of December 1976 at her home, 11 Holme Street in Palmerston North. Her place of birth, again, was given as Stratford. We know it to be Inglewood. And she lived in New Zealand for all of her life of 54 years. Her father's name is given as Thomas Samuel Lowe. Again, that should read Thomas George Frederick Lowe. And her mother's name is given as Edith May Lowe, not Eva Olive Lowe. Thomas was described as a farmer. Her marriage details were given as in Wellington at the age of 16 to Robert Daniel Kean. Again, we know it's Daniel Robert George Kean. At the time of her death, she had 3 sons living. Bobby, aged 35, Eric, 33, and the youngest, Danny, 25. She also had 3 living daughters, Maureen 31, my mother Lorraine 29, and Nairi 27. Mona was cremated on the 6th of December 1976 at Kelvin Grove Cemetery in Palmerston North. The cause of her death was listed as coronary artery insufficiency over a period of 6 months. I'm not a medical expert, but that sounds like she had a pretty serious heart problem. And the medical attendant at her death was S.T. Leong on the 26th of November 1976. We can see here the informant, the person who gave this information, was T.R. Cotton, the funeral director in Palmerston North. And of course, he would have been given this information by Mona's family. And we can see here Mona's death was registered on the 10th of December 1976. And there is the registrar's signature. Mona was cremated and her ashes were scattered in the rose gardens at Kelvin Grove Public Cemetery in Palmerston North. And here we can see the photo of the entrance to that cemetery. I went to Kelvin Grove many times over the years, and I've spoken to the staff there regarding Mona. They have confirmed for me that there is no record of exactly where Mona was scattered. Kelvin Grove has 3 rose gardens close by the main entrance, and they cannot confirm which garden her ashes were scattered in. There is no memorial plaque to Mona, and for me this is personally very difficult. As I said previously, I was very close with my grandmother, and I find it very hard that I don't know exactly where she was left to lie. I hope one day to go and place a plaque at the rose gardens in her memory. Whānau, thank you for watching this video. To my uncles Eric and Danny, I hope this information and the images you see here are not too troubling, and I trust that you will understand that I've created this video with love and the best of intentions. To my cousins, we've become very estranged over the years, and I hope that this video will perhaps give you some insight into who your grandmother was, how we are related, and hopefully it will bring us a little bit closer together. If anybody has any questions, comments, or even criticisms, please feel free to leave them in the video or on the Facebook groups, and I will try and answer them as best I can for you. If anybody has any recommendations for further videos, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm sure you know the drill by now, and I look forward to making more videos in the future. Aroha nui ahau, kia koutou, ka kite anō.